peu de mes pensées à propos de la coopération franco-britannique dans le domaine de la défense. Je suis toujours enchanté de visiter Paris et je suis particulièrement content d'être ici dans un contexte pareil. Le succès de notre coopération en Libye, le succès du sommet le mois dernier, l'arrivée d'un nouveau ambassadeur et surtout l'approfondissement rapide de la coopération entre nos armées et dans le domaine des équipements depuis la signature du traité en 2010. Et maintenant en anglais. Christian, I share your sense of imperfection as a Cambridge economist, when it wasn't particularly fashionable, and I'm delighted to be here in the year that the Franco-British Council celebrates its 40th anniversary. Established by my old boss, Edward Heath and George Pompidou, it's a particular privilege to see the organisation grow in influence and stature over the years, and thank you for inviting me. You have a very well-established reputation for exploring the issues of the day, and I'm pleased, very pleased indeed, that defence is recognised as an integral part of this ongoing dialogue. I'm delighted to see your own webpage, which is in my text already, but there it is behind me, I believe, which gives you the reference as well, www.franco-britishdefence.org, which acts as a really useful information hub. And I'd like this opportunity to thank the President d'Honneur, Madam Chairman, and Council members for their work in supporting and promoting this defence relationship. I must also particularly thank our ambassador, our new ambassador, where is he? I've lost him. So there he is at the back, modestly at the back, for so kindly hosting our conference. Given his previous role as our national security advisor, our first national security advisor, I'm confident that deepening of the Franco-British defence relationship will be a real priority for him. And I'm delighted to see the French ambassador in the UK here as well. It's a real privilege to have you here. And thank you, Mr. Ambassador, for your remarks last week to one of our defence organisations, which I read with interest and great encouragement. These remarks now will be a rather longer version of what many of you heard last night. So if some of it's familiar, just regard as a repetition, an important aid to memory and understanding the importance we attach to these questions. Defence is central to the values the UK and France share. Today I want to talk about that relationship and why it's important to seize what is actually a historic opportunity, and why it's important to drive forward this process of collaboration, and how we're doing this. But let me start by looking at why cooperation makes sense for us. His Excellency, Bernard Amy, in that speech to the British defence community last week, quoted Professor Robert Toombs, a Cambridge academic, who I think summed it up pretty well. He said, Franco-British relations over the 2 centuries since Waterloo could be seen as a transformation from enmity to alliance and finally partnership. Today, they are the only European states that maintain ambitions for a world role. Conceivably, both might prefer other partners, but in the world of the 2010s, the reality is that we only have each other. This eloquently, and I think pragmatically, defines the strategic necessity for our bilateral relationship. A partnership which makes sense because we are both outward-looking nations with experience and knowledge of almost every part of the globe. We recognise that we live in a dangerous and uncertain world in which taking shelter behind some mythical fortress Europe just isn't an option. We both understand the importance of strong defence, not only to ensure our own national territory is secure, but to contribute to international security as well. We invest in defence and meet our NATO responsibilities. We have battle-winning capabilities and highly trained and effective armed forces. And crucially, we share the political will to act and have the deployable defence capabilities to do so. Anyone who doubted that has only to look at Libya. As I said again last night, President Sarkozy was absolutely right to describe the UK and France as the heavy lifters of European defence. We share the same responsibilities on the international stage as permanent members of the UN Security Council, nuclear powers, leading members of the G8, the EU and NATO. We share a very similar world view, the same geographic space, we're of similar size as countries too. With us there is no grand frère and petit frère, although the way our respective media sometimes portray our relationship, you might think we're permanently engaged in sibling rivalry. It's just not true. In reality, this is a collaboration of logic and sense. The forces that pull us together are far more powerful than the forces that seek to drive us apart. Libya, though, was a real turning point and an affirmation that forging a new and stronger partnership was the right thing to do. The Libyan campaign was assisted by operating in a NATO framework. NATO provided legitimacy, a headquarters, as well as a common doctrine and set of procedures. It's established, proven, and based on shared values. It is a uniquely capable organisation, as Libya and indeed Afghanistan have demonstrated. And we need NATO to become stronger. As Libya showed us, there were a number of capability gaps which were highlighted in that campaign. We, the UK and France, are now prioritising our joint work in light of lessons learned identified in such areas as command and control, information systems, and targeting and reconnaissance. And of course, across the alliance, it's ever more essential to ensure nations give priority to those capabilities that NATO needs. I commend the NATO Smart Defence Initiative. The UK is a keen supporter, but smart defence, I know my French colleagues would surely agree, must not be an excuse to cut defence expenditure in Europe, but actually to make better use of the capabilities we already have. Real commitment will be required at the Chicago summit. In fact, as our economies and defence budgets are under pressure, the rationale for cooperation in these times of defence austerity becomes ever stronger. It makes sense, for example, to develop our combined joint expeditionary force. We hope the CGEF will be up and running by 2016. French and British units and ships have been undertaking reciprocal training exercises as we continue to develop the new force. I'm told our forces, like the true professionals they are, operate very well together. There is one tension, I'm told, there is a little friendly rivalry over who has the better ration pack. For the UK, collaboration is an important principle of our approach to defence equipment and support. It's an efficient way of delivering a balanced and affordable equipment programme. It means we can look to exploit economies of scale when it comes to harmonising British and French requirements and sharing overhead costs. It also helps to boost export opportunities. It allows us to maximise our capabilities, particularly when it comes to sharing technologies, and allows us to spread the cost and the risk of research and acquisition. And of course, in the case of the UK-French partnership, all of these factors support interoperability. Working with France needs not be detrimental to our national sovereignty in the UK, quite the opposite. Our view is it can help to consolidate our equipment programme and sustain aspects of our operational advantage and freedom of action. In the UK, we spend around 40% of our defence budget every year, about £13 billion, on equipment acquisition, support and technology. By getting together, we can make this money, and indeed both our budgets, go further. And we do have the spending power. Together, the UK and France account for nearly half of all defence expenditure in Europe. It makes sense for us to collaborate, work together, and plan together. That means we have to look ahead, horizon scan, and develop capabilities to meet future challenges. That's why research and technology is an area where investment is absolutely key. Our commitment to an annual target of €50 million, each from the UK and France, on joint research shows we're serious about this. And in particular, when it comes to critical technologies where the market, civil or defence, may not be sufficiently strong to meet UK and France defence needs. We'll be looking to industry to work with us on this. We need their expertise when it comes to identifying vulnerabilities, as well as spotting opportunities. Libya and Afghanistan demonstrated the usefulness of unmanned air systems, more commonly known now as drones. Last month's UK-France summit committed us to taking forward our planned cooperation on unmanned air systems. In the longer term, these will develop into unmanned combat air systems. Joint funding and interdependence could help sustain industrial capability and deliver cost savings. Another important programme is the A400M. France starts taking delivery of its transport aircraft in 2013, the UK in 2014. We're developing a common support plan, including spare parts for our future fleets of these aircraft. The UK-France project is a mature cooperation between democratic nations. Therefore, we can be open about areas of disagreement and where we have different agendas. Traditionally, the UK has preferred to look to NATO first and then the EU, whereas France has leant towards the EU. We were delighted when France rejoined the NATO military structures in 2009 and became a full player in that vital organisation. There has been significant convergence between our national positions over the years. For example, the French preparatory work for their next Livre Blanc shows a balance between multilateral engagement with the EU and NATO and bilateral engagement with key partners such as the UK. Of course, the publication of that document after the elections will set the strategic direction for France on a whole range of issues. A bigger challenge for European nations is not should our forces work under NATO or the EU, but how do we maintain capable forces? This, no doubt, will be the subject of some lively debate during the workshops later this morning. In the UK, we've changed our institutional architecture to support the deepening of our bilateral relationship with France. Our International Policy France team in the Ministry of Defence provides us with a central hub covering a range of activity, from equipment and procurement to political and military cooperation. And as some of you heard me say yesterday evening, it was my pleasure to announce the new defence staff in our embassy here in Paris now has a new name, British Defence Staff France. This is a move which explicitly acknowledges the increase in the exchange and liaison footprint here in France, as well as the defence section in Paris. It is highly symbolic. You don't need to have it spelled out to you, you're an intelligent, well-informed audience, but I'll do it nonetheless. There is only one other British embassy across the world with a similar designation, similar status, and that's our defence presence in Washington, known as British Defence Staff, US. The new organisation recognises this change in dynamic and will be a one-stop shop coordinating the expanding areas of activity and development across our partnership. This will include, of course, taking forward our portfolio of cooperative equipment programmes. This really is a significant move and reflects our commitment to a partnership which is dynamic and rapidly gathering pace. Ladies and gentlemen, Winston Churchill said that difficulties mastered are opportunities won. And that ethos is, I believe, what our defence relationship is all about. It's about working together on the challenges we both face, finding and exploiting opportunities in more areas where we can work together in a smarter, more cost-effective way. There may always be differences in our styles or our methods. That's invariably true of any successful partnership. These differences will often play to the particular strengths of each country, to the way we complement, balance and develop our defence capabilities. What's going to be very important, though, and I know we can achieve this, is harmonisation of approach. Three areas, my tripod, if you like, for the Franco-British relationship. Three areas are particularly vital to ensure we work successfully together over the longer term. Political commitment. We will continue to signal the importance that both governments attach to the defence relationship, which has transcended already one political change in the UK, I would remind you. Cooperation between our armed forces. A combined joint expeditionary force is a sign of progress, but cooperation needs to be embedded through two organisations, throughout the two organisations, and in military doctrines. That cooperation is very important. And thirdly, joint investment in research and technology. This is essential in creating the future capabilities for fighting together. This conference is a really useful opportunity to take stock, challenge some of our assumptions, and assess progress. I, for one, looking forward to having my feet held to the fire this morning when I chaired a workshop which has a slightly ominous title of Franco-British Defence Cooperation, the Balance Sheet. Anyhow, thank you very much indeed. I look forward to that very much indeed. And I think there's some short time now for questions if you have any.